good morning to our Caron YouTube audience, and again, a good morning to those of you who are with us in person and anybody who might be on campus watching on our closed circuit broadcast. Today is the eve of Hallows Eve, and I'm feeling good. I follow a series of topics in rotation, and maybe a year ago, one of my colleagues, the newest member of the spiritual care team, some of you got to know him, Jim Garvey, spectacular, wonderful man. I asked him if he would cover for chapel for me, and he said, "Do I have to do your topic?" And I was like, "No, do whatever you want." And so he said, "Well, I think I'd like to do mystery." And I was awesome. So not only did I give him carte blanche to offer a chapel service with the theme of mystery, but I decided to insert it in my rotation because I love the word, and it's a word that conjures for me a great deal of meaning and reflection and history. And so this is my first swing at the Phillies at this meaningful notion. And some of you who were here last week, I mentioned one of my mentors, a man who shaped so much of my thinking and theology and philosophy, Kendall Solon. And I'm going to reprise a tribute to Kendall and share with you that I remember another day in my systematic theology class with Kendall Solon when he talked about mystery. And this guy had such an effect on me that this would have been in 1996 or something like that. So it was a long time ago. But I can put myself back in the room in the hard chair with the classic wood student desk and see him at the podium. And, Kendall shared with me, no one had ever pointed out that there are at least two ways in which we use the word mystery, and they're quite different. And one way in which we use the word mystery, which I think many of us would go to immediately, sort of tend to think of as how the term applies, is in application to things which are like a puzzle to be solved. And you might think of the Rubik's Cube as a mystery unless you've learned the tricks and techniques to figure it out. But I don't mean quite exactly in the jigsaw puzzle kind of way. But I mean actually like a mystery novel. Like mystery novels, you read and you're paying attention to clues and whodunits or those kind of things, and the author is sprinkling information in there that many of us who like to watch or read those kinds of things try to anticipate what the answer is, and then often there's a surprise at the end. But then you know what the deal is, and sometimes the thing is so convoluted, you're like, I have to watch that whole thing again, like a Bourne movie or whatever. But this is a common use of the term mystery, is for something to which one seeks an answer, and from which one desires understanding. And once you have the understanding and the answer, it sort of demystifies the thing, right? So the next time you watch, if you remember, you're like, which drinking doesn't help, but if you remember, you're like, I already know, like this is the person. There are certain movies that just completely ruin that. I don't know if you remember an old movie called Sixth Sense, but I think that's a movie that's very hard to watch the second time, just because, it's interesting to watch the second time because it's such a trick to it. But once you know the deal, it's demystified. And you can't watch it with the same naivete. So the second meaning of the term mystery finds itself especially referred to in various circles, among them in theological and philosophical circles. But this second kind of a mystery is a reality, which I was trying to think of what the best words would be to talk about it today, which we discover or encounter, and which invites us to explore it because it's deep and multifaceted, and we can try to get more and more familiar with this kind of mystery, but it's the type of thing that never really exhausts its questions. And if you're not really getting what I'm talking about, I'm going to walk through a couple of different kinds of examples of these second types of mysteries, and to sort of let the cat out of the hat, or to reveal the answer before I get there. I want to suggest that eventually the recovery is such a But there was a person in the history of modern day mental health care whose name was Irvin Yalom, Y-A-L-O-M. And I used to hear people talk about Yalom all the time, and with this kind of veneration and respect. And eventually I read Yalom, and I ended up having to study Yalom, because one of the things that Yalom is especially known for is studies of group therapy. He's a kind of a group therapy guru. But the category in which Yalom is placed in terms of types of theoreticians about the mind and mental health care, he's an existential psychologist. Pretty cool little shingle to hang on your business card or whatever, if you're a nerd like me. But I think one of the reasons why Yalom was tagged as an existential psychologist was because he had these statements about the human person and the mind. And one of the things that Yalom brought as a fundamental to his understanding of people was that a basic aspect of who we are is in relation to the fear of, and I would say, the mystery of death. And I think when I was a young man and I first heard about Yalom, I was skeptical about the claim that my life was, sort of profoundly arranged around death, and I had that sort of way later than I should have. I had that stupid young immortality fantasy, but I don't know if any of you have ever done that, but I just conducted myself in ways that failed to have regard for the seriousness of the risks I was taking. I think actually anybody who buys an over-the-counter or takes an a street drug today is playing roulette with death. And fentanyl and carfentanil are parts of it. So that affects this audience in a very real way. And there are people who come to this room who are loved ones of our patients, who that is their fundamental terror, is that if this care does not actualize and sustain recovery, that the next thing they're going to do is planning the funeral. So, great mood breaker there, Jack. But Yalom, I've come to believe that he has something right about what he's saying. Is that I think, like I remember my first encounters with death, which were like a goldfish, and then my grandfather, who I saw as a corpse, and it's like one of those early childhood memories. I won't call it a trauma memory, but it was arresting for me, and I still remember it being hard to integrate in my young boy thought world, that my grandfather was no longer going to, he had gone from being a very dynamic and live figure to being a very sick figure in the house. He died after convalescing for many weeks in our home. This was pre-hospice era, but I'm wondering if I was 7 or 8 or 6 years old or whatever. And I think the scene that I recall was in the morgue. But eventually, as a young person, we come across the reality of death. And there's this mystery that attends death through the course of our lives. It's a curtain behind which we don't get to see. And it's not even a humorous one like the Wizard of Oz movie that I grew up with, which I realize now when I talk about it, many people don't know, so sorry about that. But where the man behind the curtain was revealed, and all of a sudden we find out that he's not the great booming voice that we thought we were imaging something. So death is a mystery, and I think that it's a mystery that engages the public curiosity, and I would say that because there are a number of books that have been published and a number of movies that have followed from some of these books, which are books where people have had near-death experiences and then come back to tell us what they saw. The classic testimony that I think engages many people's imaginations is a tunnel in a white light. But there are people who have these near-death experiences who say that it just was consciousness, no longer conscious, resumption of consciousness, and that they have no, it seems like nothing. And that doesn't mean it's nothing, right? What that means is that they don't have any awareness of an experience. And there are lots of people who speculate about this when they're out of body. All these things capture my interest in imagination. And I suspect we may have people in the room who have been brought back from overdose. Don't raise your hands, but this is becoming very common, is that people with overdose experiences will have cardiac arrest and then be revived, resuscitated. And often that motivates people to share a chapter. So this is the mystery of death is a very relevant mystery to having a Caron encounter. And gives me an opportunity to bring that in a different way, because I don't mean to be on Halloween like boo about it, but I just mean to be honest and say that it is a fear that attends many of us around the work that we do here, and those of you who come to be a part of this ministry that those of us who are staff and families share. And attached to that is the mystery of life, right? The mysteries of the soul and being and the mind. The mind is a mystery in itself. And my dear friend, Father Bill Holberg, who was the founder of this chapel service, I remember learning so much from him. And I was a theological and philosophically interested person at the time I first came to meet him, which was in 2008. And over the years from 2008 to 2017 or whatever, as he started to finish his regular contributions on this campus, there would be times, mornings, when Father Bill would say, you know, when I first started to work in this field, addiction was a mystery. But now we've got it. We know what the deal is. And what he was referring to was brain science and brain scans that have shown locations of the amygdala and other parts of the brain. Many of you learn about this in the neuroscience of addiction. But I hate to dissuade anybody, but if you think that brain science gives an answer to the mind and the soul and addiction, I think that's like thinking that Sasquatch footprints explain the abominable snowman, right? Like there's a great deal of mystery that goes from a brain scan to you or to me or to what there remains a great deal of mystery still out there in the phenomenon of life and in the phenomenon of death. And another place I just wanted to sort of quickly stop before I try and finish up is, in fact, and I know some people get very spooked by my wearing robe and stole, and I've had people ask me, why do you vest for this very interfaith service? And I have issues, so, but we're not going into that. But I was trained in my movement out of atheism into my life as a clergy person to understand that one of the functions of a clergy person is to be the custodian of the sacred for a community, which I think is a beautiful wording. And it made me feel like this was a mantle that I was putting on. And I still feel it. Every day when I wear a stole, I was taught to kiss the stole and then put it on. It's a yoke. And my responsibility, as I understand, is to shepherd our community here in mystery, in the mysteries of sacred things, life, death, but also transformation. And the kinds of sacred rituals that clergy persons preside over and help facilitate include rituals of incorporation and transformation, like in Christianity, baptism, communion, marriage, ordination, these rites and rituals. And I've become comfortable with a very kind of out there, flaky label, shamanic practitioner. I'm a shamanic practitioner. I'm a person who is trained in helping community enact ritual that is mysterious. It has beauty and has meaning, and it affects change. But that doesn't answer all of its questions. It's a little bit like the footprint versus the preacher. There's a difference between understanding how to do a wedding. I'm doing a wedding this coming Friday with a dear friend who I had sponsored, and I can't wait, and I'm excited. And if we looked at the words of the ritual, it would explain something of what the ritual does, but it would no way capture the entirety of what is meant by that portal. That's a great word also for what sacred mysteries are. They're like portals. And today, many of our young people watch TV shows and participate in anime, all these sorts of things. So I think we understand the idea of a portal. Harry Potter introduced a portal into our public imagination. Movies like Stargate. I remember I'm old enough to, like, that was an imaginative entrance into like another world. And a mystery opens up a world in front of me that doesn't mean I fully understand, but it's something for me to engage. And I already let the cat out of the bag, that's the expression. I want to invite you to contemplate the idea that one of the reasons why we call this Magic Mountain is because this is a portal place. It is a place where people come, enter a mystery, and never actually leave it, if we hope. And sadly, I think this is an interesting way for me to sort of pitch it for you if you're a patient here who is either commencing or resuming abstinence. As you resume your recovery, I'm going to cast a bit of a spell here and say that if you pick up again, you collapse the mystery. As soon as you take a drink, poof, the magic is gone. And the darkness of reality, in all of its crassness, and the shame will flood back into you. There is a magic in recovery. There is a mystery in recovery. I am standing in front of you, and God willing, in about 8 or 10 weeks, I will celebrate 34 years without a drink or a drug. It's impossible. Honestly, I would tell you that is impossible. We have people today who are going to mark some incredible milestones in their progress day to day through this mystery. And one of the things I do want to do before I shut up is to say, if you are wearing the wristband and you are new or resuming, welcome to this mysterious thing. It is sacred, it is profound, it is beautiful, and if you think you understand it, I would caution you, be careful, because humility is a part of what is the hallmark of success here. And if you think you've got it completely figured out, I'm terrified for your prospects. But if you can hear what I'm saying, which is that it's a gift to be respected, cherished, treasured, and held, then I'm hopeful that you are beginning to understand. You have won the lottery. You have turned a corner. You have experienced grace. I don't have any other word for that. And faith is a mystery too. Like there are so many of these things that are out there to be discovered, and we will discover more and more about the mystery of recovery as we stay sober one day at a time and celebrate the gift of it. What did you say, Natalie? Not maybe tomorrow, right? Instead of one day at a time. Maybe tomorrow. That's an interesting twist on it. So I like one day at a time. I'm going to stay with the classic expression. But if you stay in the mystery of one day at a time, then you have the opportunity to explore life's other mysteries to your content. And if you fall prey to the lures and temptations of the illness, and the mystery breaks like a vase, there's that terrible effort to bring Humpty Dumpty back to its form, and it's hard work. I'm not trying to beat anybody up who is here after return to use. I think that's awesome, and I think that we should celebrate every effort that each of us makes to have this mystery come alive for us. But I also felt called to just speak some truth about how incredible this is. What an amazing thing this is that we seek to help happen for one another and with one another. And it does, it happens here all the time. We participate in mysteries just like they just flower here incredibly, day after day, week after week. You'll hear some of them, Samuel share. I hope you will be one. And family members are mysteries too. There are family recoveries as real as the addict's recovery, and just as magical and wonderful. God bless you all. Welcome to the mystery. Thanks. Thanks, Mark.